The whole town's batting about Cincinnati. What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.
Hello, Reds fans, and welcome to another edition of We Love Our Team. Along with my partner, Randy Freaking, I'm Jack Reiner, and we're privileged today to have with us Kevin Murphy. Kevin is a longtime attorney in the Northern Kentucky and Greater Cincinnati area. He is the founding partner of the firm of Murphy, Landon, and Jones, which is located in Northern Kentucky. And Kevin has had a storied career and a number of interesting cases. And we're going to talk about some of his legal work, but we want to definitely talk about his baseball fandom. He's a convert, and we'll explain that as we go forward. But Kevin, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so Kevin, you grew up in New York City, right? And
Yep.
I think you were sadly a Yankees fan early on in your life. Is that correct?
Well, when I was growing up, we weren't allowed to root for the Yankees because my father lived and died with the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Ah, okay.
And so the Yankees were hated. So the Mets came into existence in 1962, and we became Mets fans. And I flipped the switch to the Yankees when the Mets won the '86 World Series, and the general managers just decided to get rid of Keith Hernandez, Lenny Dykstra, Wally Backman, Ray Knight. And I was so disgusted, I went to the dark side and started rooting for the Yankees. Now I find myself just rooting for all teams New York. And, of course, I've had season tickets with the Reds. I love going to the Reds, but they frustrate me.
So, Kevin, did you play baseball as a kid?
Yes. Yeah, I live and breathe baseball all my life.
What position?
Shortstop.
All
and
right.
And also garbage time pitcher.
So who did you picture yourself being? Who did you imagine yourself to be when you were out there playing in the sandlot?
Well, the picture was extinguished pretty quickly when I was in a round robin baseball tournament on Long Island, and there were scouts there, and I had one of my best weekends ever. I hit like 450. I made every play in the field. I threw out a couple of guys from the hole, and I saw this scout going to his car, and I went up to him and said, "What do you think?" And he asked me my name. He flipped a few pages, and he said, "Study hard in college, kid." And I said, "What do you mean? I hit 450. I made every play in the field." And he said, "You got the glove, you got the range, you certainly have the arm, but every hit you got was a 2-1 or a 3-1 fastball, and every time you were 0-2 or 1-2 or 2-2, and you got Uncle Charlie, you hit the pines." And then they named a movie after me years later, Trouble with the Curve.
Trouble with the Curve. Well, you are certainly not alone. So I'm wondering, does your dad? I had a lawyer friend of mine who was a Brooklyn Dodger fan, and I mentioned one time that I was reading a book about Walter O'Malley, and we were emailing, and he wrote back and said Walter O'Malley is roasting in hell. So did your dad feel the same way about Walter O'Malley?
Oh. I don't know if you've ever heard the song. If you haven't, you must. By Frank Sinatra. He wrote a song about Ebbets Field called "There Used to Be a Ballpark Right Here."
That is a tremendous song. I'm a big Frank fan. I love that song, Kevin.
And my father was a pretty rough and tumble Irishman, New York City street kid. He never finished high school, but he got a PhD in street smarts. He couldn't hear that song without choking up. He would. The loss of the Brooklyn Dodgers was a knife in his heart.
Are you old enough, Kevin, to have gone to Ebbets Field?
No. I don't think I was ever I ever went to Ebbets. At least I wasn't told I went anyway. But
Yeah, that was before your time. I think it was like 1956. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think the Reds opened the season against the Dodgers in LA in the late 50s.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah, it was a bad time for Brooklyn when that happened.
So
Um,
how old were you? I don't mean to age you, Kevin, but how old were you in 1969?
in October of '69, I was 16 years old, and that World Series was the first time I ever got in any trouble in my scholastic career. I, if you recall, those games were in the afternoon. So the
Yeah.
series started in Baltimore. The Orioles won game one, Kuzman won game two, and game three started at 2 o'clock. I didn't get home in time from school to see the end of the game, and that drove me crazy. So Wednesday at noon, I took a deep breath, blessed myself, left Holy Cross High School in Flushing, stuck out my thumb on Francis Lewis Boulevard, and hitchhiked to Shea Stadium, where an Italian cop saw my Holy Cross insignia on my jacket, let me sneak in, and an Irish usher got me a seat right behind the screen on the second level with three Wall Streeters, and I got to see the Mets win in extra innings in that game. That was the Swoboda catch.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so my parents were told that I was missing. The call came at around 1:30. My father was a truck driver. He was a night worker. And my mother raced up there and said, "We have to call up the New York City police. Kevin's missing." And he asked, "What time is it?" And when she told him, he said, "He's at the baseball game." And he went back to sleep. So the call came at 8 o'clock at night that I was suspended, which was fabulous because then I got to stay home and watch the Mets win the World Series on Thursday. So yeah, that was quite a
That's
great
good.
memory.
What a punishment! What a punishment! You shall not come to school, young man. You'll stay home and watch the Mets. Clint, did they
It,
win
it,
four
it
to one?
tells
Was
you a
that
lot
4-1?
about it tells you a lot about academia, Jack, because the greatest punishment they could have given me was to have me come to school and sit until the last out.
Right.
Um, but they didn't think about that, which is great.
See the
Kevin,
Mets.
how'd you like that 1976 World Series, being a Yankee hater at the time?
Wow, that was a hurricane that came through. Whew. Yeah, that was what a team. That was an amazing team. But I have a better memory for you, Randy. I was in Fenway Park, 1975, Game 7, where
Wow.
I saw the greatest managerial mistake ever made in World Series history. So I'm going to test your memory because you guys are the Reds fans. I was in New York at the time. If you remember, the Red Sox were winning 3-0 until Bill Lee threw the folly floater to Perez, and
Yep.
that ball became a new planet. And then it was 3-3, bases loaded. Here comes Johnny Bench, and out comes the Red Sox manager to bring in a journeyman, end of his career middle reliever named Tom Willoughby. And Willoughby threw one pitch, and Fisk caught it in the stands. Willoughby went, I don't know if this is exactly true, but a pop out, a ground out, and a fly out. And then in the eighth, same thing. Call strike three, ground out, pop out. So he's just gone through the greatest lineup, one of the greatest lineups in history, got all 7 outs on about 17 pitches. Bottom of the eighth, 2 outs, nobody on. Willoughby's due up. And he pinch hits for him with Cecil Cooper, who was benched 1 for 19, and he took three right down Broadway. And then the manager brings in a rookie in the top of the ninth of a tied seventh game of the World Series. And as you know, the rest is history.
Wow.
Wow, that's quite a story.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's funny because when you started talking about bad manager decisions, I immediately started thinking of the '86 uh, World Series with John McNamara, kind of not putting in a defensive replacement for Buckner and just making a whole host of decisions that were a little questionable. So the Red Sox suffered from some bad decision making, right?
Yes, and of course the curse of Babe Ruth.
Of course.
Don't forget that.
Well, Kevin, tell us about your Reds fandom.
Well, when I moved here, I started to go to some games. I have to go to baseball games. And I met some players on the golf course. I was getting involved a little bit with my practice with sports. 1990 was just fabulous. I still cling to that, like every other Reds fan. Lou Piniella, what a great manager he was. But it's been a dry spell. How many players have we seen go on, leave us to go to having all-star careers, and it's tough. I thought this year was very promising at the outset, but gosh, all the injuries to our pitchers, the second baseman McLean with his shoulder. We weren't getting any information about him. I hope he's going to be okay for next year, but I thought this was going to be the year because I was pretty excited at the outset. But yeah, I pull for the Reds. I pull for the Reds big time. But I just hope that we can start spending some money.
Yeah. Well, McLean's playing in the Arizona Fall League, so that's a good sign, and hopefully he'll get through that in rehab. And I think he is and will be a great player. So, who are some of your favorite players over the years, Reds players?
Well, I love watching Concepcion because I played short. I really liked Davey. I just thought that he was so underrated on that team. There were so many superstars, but I just thought he made so many difficult plays look easy. I love the those three nut jobs in the bullpen during 1990. Randy Myers was my favorite. I just thought that he was so gritty. That bullpen was just amazing. Paul O'Neill probably is one of my favorite Reds. And George Steinbrenner actually once said that Paul O'Neill was his favorite Yankee. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, that's
over Jeter, because he loved his fire and he loved his passion. But Paul had a great career in New York. New York's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
But he started out, if you remember, when he went to New York in the first year, he started out the first 2 months hitting over 400, and that endeared himself to the fan base there. But yeah, Paul O'Neill is one of my favorite Yankees.
Were you at Game 2 of the 1990 playoffs when he threw out Andy Van Slyke at third base?
I was at all 4 games of the World Series, Mr. Greiner. I actually went out. I went out west for the other 2. I saw it all. It was phenomenal. That throw was astounding. He had a shotgun.
Oh my God!
Browning.
If any
Browning
of our listeners are not familiar, if any of our listeners are not familiar with that throw, deep fly ball to right field, Andy Van Slyke on second, tags, and it was a laser. I would just say go to YouTube and check it out, because I do not think I've ever seen a better throw ever. It was
and watch how close he was to the warning track too.
I know. Yeah. It was just like everything about that throw. It hit off the turf and went right over Van Slyke's shoulder, and Sabo gets the tag down. I will never ever forget that. That was just incredible.
Hey, Kevin, you alluded to your practice. Tell us a little bit about your practice and your representation of sports figures?
I started with an agent in Cleveland that wanted to move to Cincinnati, and he wanted to open up his own practice, but he had a non-compete. And we were successfully able to get him started. And so, and Jack, you know him, Joe Bick.
Oh yeah, Joe's a great guy. Yeah.
Yep. And so I started to do some of Joe's arbitrations, and occasionally look over an endorsement deal, an endorsement contract. And then interesting thing happened to me. Randy Marsh came to me and showed me that his picture was being used in a magazine for an ad without his permission. And so I did a little digging and found out that the Lanham Act applied. Tried to get them to resolve it. They wouldn't. Filed a lawsuit. They settled in a New York minute. And then Joe West contacted me, showed me a baseball card where it was a player's card, but there was a picture of him making an out call, and you could see him as plain as day. I got him some money, and then 16, 17, 20 other guys came, and I filed a suit in front of Judge Spiegel over in Cincinnati. And that suit was very successful, and all of a sudden I started to do a little bit of work for umpires. So it's been fun. I've gotten to meet some players. I got to meet Don Fear and Mark Belanger and those union folks. Boy, that baseball union is the success they had with the collusion cases. They really know what they're doing. But it's been fun. It gives me the opportunity for a lot of free tickets, Randy.
Well,
Randy's got a prop on. Randy's put on a prop here.
Yeah, I put on my umpire mask, Kevin. I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually a high school umpire in my spare time in the spring.
Nice.
I've done it for a lot of years. I took a kind of a hiatus for 20 or 25 years, but I've gotten back into it. It's kind of hard to see balls and strikes behind this mask sometime, you know?
Yeah. I just hope your eyes are in good shape.
Yeah, really. So, Kevin, you've had recently a couple of high profile cases with some umpires. I know you had. Maybe you could tell our listeners about you represented Angel Hernandez in like an employment dispute.
Yes. Before we filed the lawsuit in 2017, there had never been an African American umpire promoted to crew chief. And there had been only one Hispanic Latino umpire, and that was Richie Garcia. And they fired him in 1999. And so we took a look at statistical data, and we filed a suit claiming that the hiring of crew chiefs was discriminatory. The court didn't see it our way. We didn't prevail. But the one thing that Angel and I are very proud of, since we filed the lawsuit, there has been an African American or Latino umpire in every single playoff and World Series game. And now there's a tremendous amount of crew chiefs, minority crew chiefs, that have been promoted. So I take solace in that. So we took a loss on that one, but Angel did a great thing for his fellow umpires. The other one was Joe West. I sued Joe on a defamation lawsuit against LaDuca, the former Mets catcher. We got a $500,000 verdict for him making defamatory comments about Joe.
I think, Kevin, your opening remarks might have been drowned out by the audience participation there. That was for Joe West?
Yes.
Tell us about that case.
Tell our listeners a little bit about the facts of that case, because I'm not sure they know it. I find it fascinating. So.
Well, these two, LaDuca and another fellow, were on a podcast, and they were talking baseball, and LaDuca said that oh gosh, the name just went out of my mind.
Billy Wagner.
The left hand, Billy Wagner. That's right. He said whenever Billy Wagner was on the mound, Joe West would give him another foot on either side of the plate because Billy Wagner had some classic cars that he would flip the keys to Joe for a weekend or something like that, and the other guy said, "Wow, is that true?" or some comment like that, and Joe just broke the record a couple of years ago for most games, and the fellow whose record he broke is in the Hall of Fame. And we were concerned about anybody thinking that he would do that. And so we filed a lawsuit, and the judge saw it our way. Billy Wagner, he was equally as incensed. He was very upset about it, and was a participant. I got a little Billy Wagner story to tell you, by the way, Randy. Wagner should be in the Hall of Fame if you take a look at his stats. But what I find just fascinating is he was right-handed, and he broke his arm when he was like 7 years old. Got it out of the cast. A couple months later, as an 8-year-old, I think he breaks it again, and so his right arm was out of commission for almost a year and a half, and he taught himself how to throw left-handed. So you think about Billy Wagner throwing 97, 98 miles an hour with his non-dominant arm.
Jeez. That's crazy. Well, we were at the Bengals game on Sunday, and the Bengals now have a thing at the fourth quarter. They have a local guitar player play, "Welcome to the Jungle," and he's up on the big screen and everything. And this guy on Sunday starts playing, and it's really good, but all you can hear is the music. Then all of a sudden the camera pans in. The guy has one arm. He plays. He has a prosthetic device that strums, and then he's able to do, the frets with his left hand. And I play the guitar, and I turned to my wife and I said, "Well, it's official. A one-armed guy plays the guitar better than me." So
I'm surprised he didn't play taps.
Yeah. Well, that would have been appropriate. When you were talking about Angel Hernandez, I was trying to think of the African American. It was Eric Gregg, right? Was he the African American umpire? Or?
Yes.
He was never a crew chief, though.
He was never a crew chief. Wow. Okay.
No. Nope.
He was the guy. Didn't the Philly Fanatic put a cheeseburger on third base for him or something?
Yes. Oh, goodness gracious.
Hey,
John McSherry would.
Kevin, what do you think about the implementation of an automatic strike zone? I forget what they call it. I know they're testing it in the minor leagues, and I'm sure that's controversial with umpires to some extent, also players, obviously. But what are your thoughts about MLB basically telling the umpire what to call on balls and strikes?
Well, they got a dirty little secret that they aren't telling people, which is the reason why it's not implemented. They've been trying this out in certain levels of the minors. And one of the problems they're having with the system is about 9, 10, 11 pitches per game, the computer calls nothing. Doesn't say ball, doesn't say strike. And actually, what they're figuring out is, there's 78 umpires. The very worst umpire, balls and strikes, is about 94.6. That box you see on the screen is not the strike zone that the umpires are judged upon. Every morning when they wake up in a hotel room after they had a plate job, they can go on their email around 10 in the morning and they could see their stats in every pitch that they missed. And as it turns out, these umpires are actually doing better than the system that they're trying out. I think Uh, I know I don't see things with clear glasses, but uh, I just I don't like the DH. I don't like tampering with this beautiful game. The umpires have always been part of it, and if they go to a computer type system, I don't even know if I would go to a game. The good news is that most pitchers do not want robo umps. They will bitch, they will complain. Of course they will. So does every batter that's got a call strike three. But the umpires are amazing at what they do, and their accuracy is incredible. And I hope they never do it.
Well, just based on the numbers, it's harder to be an umpire than it is to be a player. I mean, in terms of just getting to the top level, you said there's 78, right? 78 umpires,
Yeah.
as opposed to what hundreds of players, almost 1,000 players. But there's a great book called As They See Them. I can't remember the name of the author, but he spent some time with some minor league umpires and just the process that those guys go through and making no money. I mean, it's amazing. There was this one umpire that would stay at a motel and then in the morning get up and run across the interstate to get to a motel that was a little more expensive, but it served free breakfast. So he'd sneak in. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that they had to do. It was really interesting.
Hey,
Oh, they
Kevin, why
used
don't you
to.
explain to our audience who may not realize that, but I agree with you about what we see on the TV is not exactly the strike zone. But will you tell our audience why that's true? That there somewhat it's misleading.
It is. It's actually a little bit of a bigger zone, and baseball has come up with this system. They they've negotiated these things with the umpires union, and like for instance, Kyle Schwarber. Do you remember when he went absolutely berserk on Angel Hernandez? Remember that
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years ago?
Yes.
Yep.
Well, following morning, he wakes up, he finds out he made the right call. But does the public know it? Does baseball tell the public that, hey, by the way, that pitch was a strike? No, they don't. And the umpires are not allowed to talk about it. They're prohibited from trying to defend themselves on these types of calls. It's a tough job. It really is a difficult profession to be in.
Yeah, no doubt. Did you know Richie Phillips at all?
Yeah, I met Richie. Uh, Richie wouldn't take that Lanham Act case
Really?
for the guys. He didn't think that we would win it.
Hmm.
That Thompson, Fleer, and Upper Deck and those folks would just fight like hell. But drawing Judge Arthur Spiegel was pretty fortunate. Not only was he a very astute judge, but I don't know if you know this, Randy and Jack, but Arthur Spiegel was a baseball fan, big time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so at the initial pretrial, he said, "Okay, Murphy, you never call me by my first name." You go, "Okay, Murphy, you got 5 minutes. What's your case about?" And I laid out all the umpires. I laid out all the baseball cards. He knew every one of the umps.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. He
Well,
knew
what
them
was the
all.
case?
That's
Hey,
Spanky
Kevin.
Fremming. Yeah.
Kevin, what was that case about? I don't recall that case. What was that case about?
The the baseball card companies, they pay the owners and they pay the players, but they don't pay the umpires. And at that particular time, the union contract between the umpires and Major League Baseball was silent on licensing. So Tops and Upper Deck and Fleer and these other card companies uh, were showing a picture of Chris Sabo diving into second base, and you see Joe West with an out call And there he is, larger than life, with his face right there. And they weren't paying the umpires for using their likeness on the baseball cards. And I did some research, found out that it was a federal statute right on point.
Yeah.
And Richie didn't think we could win it. I took it, and we got a very nice resolution.
Well, Richie Phillips was the guy that came up with that brilliant strategy to have all the umpires resign, en masse, and they only to find that baseball was kind of ready for it, fired them all, and hired new umpires. I'm friends with John Hirschbeck, who was a longtime umpire, and he did not go along with that plan and did not sign the resignation letter. So, and he just, I mean, he has nothing good to say about Richie Phillips at all.
Yeah, that was a bad time because they went to arbitration, and some umpires were brought back, like Joe West, but others were not, and they lost their careers. That was difficult.
Yeah, I think Eric Gregg. Speaking of Eric Gregg, I think he was one of those guys. I don't think he ever got back into the game.
No, he didn't. He didn't, and he died young. Very, very sad. Eric was a very nice man. Very nice fellow.
Like it. Yeah, I mean, he seemed like even with all the weight jokes and stuff, he seemed like he was a pretty good sport about it, which couldn't have been easy to take. Judge Spiegel was such a piece of work, though, Kevin. I mean, but I had a case one time with Judge Spiegel where, his pretrials were great because, you get a lot done in his pretrials, and he would ask people. He had this formula, this Lloyd's of London formula to settle cases, right? And you'd had to give a percentage of liability, like what you think the percentage was for liability, and then what the damages would be, and then he would do a. But and this one lawyer from out of town comes in, and Spiegel looks at it. Judge Spiegel I can't remember the guy's name, but Judge Spiegel looks at him and says, "So what do you think your chances are of winning this case?" The guy goes 100%, and Spiegel just looks at it and goes, "Bullshit." And I mean, it's just so funny. It just was like. No, that's not how this works.
Okay, the drum roll was our time. That was our signal, Kevin, for a little word association. And I'll start this off with George Steinbrenner.
Loved him. You needed a player. You needed a player. George got him.
Okay, how about Bud Selig?
Car salesman.
Billy Martin.
Fiery.
Mariano Rivera.
The best ever.
Boston Red Sox.
Boo.
Bucky Dent.
Without his middle name, Jack? Don Zimmer gave him a middle name, remember? That 1978 homer? I'll never forget that home run, baby. Bucky bleeping Dent.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, what a rivalry. My daughter went to Fordham, and she went to a Red Sox-Yankees game, and she sat up in center field, and some guy walked past wearing a Red Sox jersey, and she said, "Dad, I thought it was going to be a riot." I mean, it was just like she couldn't believe it.
Well, can I share one quick Red Sox story with you?
Of course.
I'm up in Boston taking depositions. I don't know, late 90s maybe, or early 2000. I can't remember. It was September. And I read in the Globe that the Yankees are coming to town Thursday night, 4-game series in September. So I call up Joe West and I said, "Hey, Joe, who's coming to town? Do you know what umps are coming?" He goes, "Yeah, me." And I said, "All right." He says, "I got the plate Friday night." And I said, "Well, I was going to fly out Friday night, but I'll move it to Saturday." He said, "Yeah." I said, "So leave me a ticket." And he said, "Fine." Well, I get to the park. I'm in my suit. I go to the will call window. There's 2 seats. They're right behind the plate. Now, I always bring my Yankee hat whenever I go to Boston, always. And I wear it because I love the needle and I love to give the needle. So I've got this great seat right behind the plate. I know I'm going to have to take my hat off because that's where the family is. So I see this long line of people, and I asked the Boston cop, why are these people all lined up? And he said, if people don't pick up their tickets at the will call window by the end of the second, they go on sale for cheap. So I walk down, and people are booing me and hissing me, and I'm trying to find somebody to go in with me. And I see this guy. He's 80 if he's a day. He's in a Red Sox jacket and a Red Sox hat. He's by himself. And I went up to him and I said, "Hey, Pop, you want to come in with me? I got an extra ticket." "Get the fuck out of here, you no good Yankee fan. Take a fucking hike." And so everybody starts laughing. I said, "Look, pal, I got 2 tickets and I got one in each hand." I said, "Joe West is a buddy of mine. He's up behind the plate. He gave me these 2 tickets. We're right behind the screen, buddy. We're right behind the home plate. You want to come in with me?" "What do you think? I'm an idiot? I'm not giving my place up online." So this couple said, "Well, hold your spot. I think he's telling the truth." So we walked to the gate in complete and utter silence. And so I give the tickets to the ticket taker. We go through the turnstile. We walk 4 steps, and the guy stops and he says, "I think I was an asshole."
Oh.
And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And then he says to me, "Where are we sitting?" And I said, "You know, buddy, if you were one of Jesus's apostles, you would be Thomas. I told you that we're behind the plate." Well, we went down there and we had a great time. He was a retired pipe fitter, 8 kids, and we had a blast. We sat there and talked baseball all night, and it was delightful. But that walk between the line and the ticket taker in complete silence, that guy didn't believe a word I said.
I hope he bought you a beer.
He did. He actually bought the first round. Yep.
All right, good. That's good. Hey, Kevin, this was really fun, man. We appreciate you taking the time. And for our listeners, Kevin is sitting in Sarasota in the path of the oncoming storm. So it was nice of you to do this under the circumstances, and we wish you nothing but the best. Keep us posted on how it goes down there, but best of luck to you.
Yeah, thanks. Please pray for the people in Florida because this one's going to be a doozy.
Yeah. Hey,
thanks,
thank
boys.
you very much. Hey, Kevin, it's been awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. That was a good one, Randy. No net. We were kind of doing our trapeze act with no net, no script, no nothing. But he's got some great stories. He's got some great. I did.
The whole town's batting about Cincinnati. What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.